Heshe wants to talk to you right now, at this very moment. The thought is fixed. The desire is almost uncontrollable. But something stops them. A finger hovers over the send button, breath held before they muster the courage. Fear, pride, doubts, all mixed together. The phone has been picked up and put down more times than it should have. She has mentally rehearsed how to start the conversation, how to break the silence, but nothing feels right. Nothing feels enough. Time has passed, distance has grown, but the need to talk to you remains. Strong. Almost suffocating. The question is, do you feel this too? Or has it become a thing of the past? If this message came through right now, would you respond? She wants to talk to you but doesn't know how. Time has passed, things have changed, and now uncertainty rules. Do you still care? Would the response come back, or would it be ignored? The doubt weighs more than it should. She thinks of every detail. The last look, the last word spoken, what was felt but never said. What would have happened if the conversation had gone differently? If one of you had insisted a bit more? If the last message hadn't gone unanswered? The truth is, the desire to talk to you never vanished. It was stifled, postponed, pushed to the back of the mind, but it never ceased to exist. And now it's stronger than ever. Something needs to be said, something needs to be clarified, but is there still room for that? If this message reached you right now, how would you react? Would you ignore it? Leave it hanging as if nothing happened? Or would you respond, even without knowing what to say? She has imagined all the possible responses. The fear of being rejected weighs heavily, but the need to speak is greater. The silence hurts. The doubt eats away at them. And the only way to end this is to bridge that distance. But pride gets in the way. The fear of appearing weak, of showing vulnerability, of admitting that you miss them. Maybe they were waiting for you to make the first move. Maybe they expected signs that there was still room to come back. And now, with no answers, all that remains is this indecision. What do they really want to say? Maybe a simple "I miss you" would solve everything. Or maybe it needs to be something more. Perhaps it requires an apology, an explanation, "I still think about you." But what if it's too late? And you? If this message appeared on your phone right now, how would you feel? Anger, longing, indifference? Would you delete it without reading? Or would you open it and wait a few minutes before responding? Or maybe you'd respond right away because deep down, that waiting hurts you too. The issue is, one of you needs to take that step, because silence only increases the distance and doubt only strengthens the regret. What if this message was meant for you? They have picked up their phone countless times, opened the chat, looked at the last message sent, reread the words that are now in the past. They tried to find some sign that there was still space to come back, but nothing. No clues, no hints, just emptiness, a silence that speaks much louder than any response could. Maybe you have moved on. Maybe you've learned to live without that presence. Or perhaps you're waiting for exactly this message, pretending not to care, just like they have been pretending. Because the truth is that no one forgets suddenly. Not you. Not them. Time may have passed, but some feelings remain alive. That memory that pops up out of nowhere, that moment that still sends a shiver down your spine, that song that brings back everything that was felt. But instead of speaking out, instead of admitting it, both of you remain silent, pretending not to think of each other. But then why this urge to send a message? Why this need to say something, to know if there's still a space, a way back? Fear gets in the way. Pride weighs heavy. But deep down, doubt hurts even more. What if you don't respond? What if you act as if none of this matters? What if you make it seem like she is alone in this feeling? But what if you are waiting? What if this message is what's needed to break the silence, to reopen a story that should never have been interrupted? She doesn't know what to do, doesn't know if it's worth the risk, doesn't know if it's too late or if there's still time. And you? If this message arrived right now, what would you do? Would you respond or pretend you didn't see it? Time can erase a lot, but it doesn't erase everything. Some stories remain unfinished because one of them didn't have enough courage, because some foolish pride took precedence, because unnecessary fear held the words in their throat. And now she is here, holding the phone, wanting to write, wanting to talk. But is it still worth it? If this message arrived right now, would you know how to respond? Or does this silence speak louder than any words could say? What would you do if that notification appeared on your phone right now? Would you block it, ignore it, respond? Or would you wait, just to see how far this story can go? She is waiting for your response, even without having sent anything yet. But what about you? Are you waiting for this message too? She is there, holding the phone, staring at the screen, as if it would give an answer. As if suddenly the right words would come to mind and the fear would disappear. But it doesn't disappear. Not now. How many times has she thought about calling you? How many times did they type something and delete it before even finishing? Their finger hovered over the send button, their heart raced, their breathing became heavy, but nothing happened. Because deep down there's always that suffocating doubt. What if I get ignored? The truth is, she misses you. And they miss you genuinely. Not like someone who remembers a moment and then forgets. It's a kind of absence that weighs on their chest, that tightens their stomach, that transforms into insomnia and persistent thoughts. They wonder if you feel the same way, if you also struggle against the urge to just say hi, but hide it behind some foolish pride. Maybe you both are playing the same game, pretending to have moved on, making it seem like nothing matters anymore. But is that really true? Has this story really come to an end? Because if it had ended, why would she still be here, hesitating, thinking about you, rehearsing phrases in their head, and looking for excuses for a reunion? Why do some memories still make their heart race? She could simply let it go. They could pretend like none of this exists, that life has moved on, but that would be a lie. Because every time they see something that reminds them of you, everything comes rushing back. She has tried to distract themselves. They've tried to ignore this desire, push it away, pretend that they don't feel anything anymore. But they failed. Because certain connections don't disappear no matter how hard we try. Now they're wondering if you still have room for this conversation, if you would respond or act like none of this makes a difference. And you? Would you feign indifference? Would you wait a little longer just to see how long she can endure this silence? Or would you respond even without knowing what to say? Because deep down, the question that won't leave her mind is just one. If I send this message, do you still want me in your life? And what if you received that message right now? What would you do? Would they leave you on read? Respond coldly? Or allow themselves to feel again, even knowing that this could change everything? They are waiting for your reply, even without having sent anything just yet. But what about you? Are you waiting for this message too? They still haven't sent anything. They haven't made that decision yet, but their mind is racing, their heart is tightening, and with each passing minute, the feeling that something has to be done only worsens. Ignoring this isn't an option anymore. Pretending that the urge to speak with you doesn't exist is impossible. Have you ever wondered how many times they stopped to think about this? How many times they tried to muster the courage, rehearsed in their mind what to say, only to back out at the last minute? What hurts the most isn't the fear of your response, but the uncertainty of not knowing if there's still space to return. And you? Are you still thinking about them? Do you still feel that pang of nostalgia when something reminds you of that person? Or have you buried it all, turned the page, and don't want to look back? Because they need to know. They need to know if there's still a path forward, if this message has the chance to change something, if your silence means it's all over, or if there are still things that need to be said. They don't want to seem weak. They don't want to show that they miss you, that they still carry you inside them, that some nights were spent awake trying to understand how you got to this point. But that's the truth, and deep down, don't you feel the same way? Maybe you've tried to ignore it, sweep it under the rug, telling yourself it was better this way. But what if it wasn't? What if this time only proved that some things shouldn't have been left behind? The dilemma is here. They want to talk to you. They are holding their phone right now, looking at the screen, trying to decide whether to send the message or not, whether to expose how they feel or to bury it once and for all. Because if they send it, there's no turning back. And if they don't send it, they may never know the answer. And you? If this message came through right now, what would you do? Would you wait a few hours to respond just to see if she suffers on the other side? Would you act like none of this matters? Would you pretend you didn't feel anything when you saw his/her name pop up in the notification? Or would you jump into the conversation immediately because that wait is killing you too? Time doesn't stop, and with each passing minute, the doubt grows. Is he/she sending this message or forgetting you altogether? And you? Are you ready for this conversation? He/she hasn't messaged yet. Still there, staring at the screen, battling with themselves, trying to decide whether it's worth breaking the silence or if it's better to pretend they feel nothing. Pretend they've moved on. Pretend they don't care. But that's a lie, because if they had moved on, they wouldn't be like this. They wouldn't be thinking of you with every notification that comes in, wouldn't be rereading old conversations, wouldn't be holding their phone right now, finger hovering over the screen, torn between pride and the desire to reach out. And what if you knew that? What if you knew that behind all this distance is someone stuck, someone who wants to reach out but doesn't know if they can, someone who feels just as much as you do? Would everything change? Because deep down, their fear isn't just about being ignored. The real fear is realizing that maybe you've already moved on, that maybe they waited too long. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever had that feeling of wanting to send a message but something holds you back? The fear of the response, the doubt about whether you'll be welcomed, the anxiety of opening a door that might not lead anywhere. Now imagine that he/she is feeling that, right now, at this very moment, wanting to know what you would do if that notification popped up on your phone. Would you open it immediately? Or would you leave it there unanswered as a way to show that you have pride too? Because pride destroys. It was pride that brought you to this point. It was pride that prevented a conversation that needed to happen. It was pride that held back every unspoken word, every unsent message, every attempt to reconnect that died before it could begin. But now he/she is reaching their limit. The limit between continuing to pretend or admitting how they feel. The limit between keeping everything to themselves or finally trying. And what about you? If this message appeared on your phone screen right now, what would you do? Would you take a deep breath before opening it? Would you stare at the screen, feeling your heart race, unsure of how to respond? Or would you simply ignore it, acting as if none of this affects you? Because in the end, everything can change with a single message. And maybe, at this very moment, he/she is writing exactly that. But will they have the courage to send it? Or will pride speak louder once again? And if you were in their place, would you send it? They still haven't sent it. The message is there, written, waiting for a single touch to be sent. But hesitation lingers. The heart feels heavy. The mind gets stuck. How many times have they gone through this? How many nights spent looking at their phone, waiting for a reason to believe it's worth trying? And what if you were waiting too? What if, on the other side, you wanted that message as much as he/she wants to send it? But fear paralyzes. What if the response doesn't come? What if the response is cold? What if it changes nothing? What if it changes everything? The truth is that after all this time, it's hard to know what reaction to expect. You used to be close. You were essential to each other. You shared secrets, moments, glances that said more than words. You trusted each other blindly. But now? Now everything is uncertain. Now everything hangs in a limbo between the past and the present, between the desire to go back and the fear of reopening a story that may not have a happy ending. He or she wants to talk, wants to know if you still feel something, wants an answer to that doubt that won't leave their mind, but they can't control how you're going to react. And you? How would you react? If this message came through right now, would your chest tighten? Or would you feel nothing at all, reading the message without replying? That's an option, leaving the conversation open and visible, just so they can see that you read it but weren't interested in continuing. Responding coldly, as if none of it matters. As if you felt nothing upon seeing that name light up on the screen. As if you hadn't spent nights thinking about the same thing. Or replying immediately without even thinking, because that waiting suffocates you too. Because that distance bothers you too, because you know that a story like this doesn't just end easily. But will they actually send it? Or will they give up at the last second? The feeling of wanting to say something and not being able to is agonizing. It's a knot in your throat that won't untie. It's a pressure in your chest that grows every time a moment from the past pops into your mind. What if you still think about it? What if this message isn't just from them? What if, deep down, you also want to send a message, but pride has held you back until now? Maybe you're both waiting to see who will give in first, who will admit it, who will put aside their fear and take a step toward the other. But what if no one takes that step? What if this silence continues? What if instead of resolving the things left unsaid, you both simply accept this distance, letting time erase what remains? Because time does erase. It erases memories, it erases desires, it erases feelings that once seemed unshakable. But is that really what you want? Because a day may come when this message is never sent. A moment may arrive when that urge to talk disappears. An instant may come when they stop waiting for a sign, for a reason, for encouragement. And when that moment comes, there will be no more chances. Then you might look back and realize that you lost the only opportunity to discover what could have been. So I ask you again, if this message arrived right now, what would you do? Would you put it off for later? Would you wait just a little longer? Or would you reply without hesitation because you've already waited too long? Because this could be the last attempt, the last chance to resolve what was left in the past, the last opportunity to say what was never said. What if it were you? If you were holding your phone right now, with the screen open and your heart racing, hesitating between sending it or not, would you send it? Or would you wait until it was too late? If this text resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Would you send this message or continue in silence? I want to know your thoughts. And if this story touched you, if you've been through something similar, give it a like so I understand that this kind of content makes sense to you. And don't forget to subscribe, because here we talk about truths that few have the courage to say. Now the final question. Would you reply to this message? Or would you let silence decide for you?